I park my dusty 1998 Jeep Cherokee at the edge of Fort Branton's main lot, as far from the gleaming SUVs and polished sedans as possible. My hands linger on the steering wheel for just a moment. 6 years with Ghost Viper taught me to catalog details instantly: the positioned security cameras, blind spots near the administrative building, the cadets forming tight social clusters near the barracks. I breathe deep, pull my worn duffel bag from the back seat, and step into the role I'll play for the coming weeks. The August heat hits me like a wall as I trudge toward the administrative building in my deliberately shabby civilian clothes. My boots, once military grade but now scuffed beyond recognition, kick up small clouds of dust with each step. Would you look at what just blew in? The voice carries clearly across the parade ground, pitched to reach every ear. I turn slowly to face a tall man with a jawline sharp enough to cut glass and a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. Lance Brewer. His file described him as demonstrating exceptional aptitude. But I see the tells, the way he stands with shoulders too far back, overcompensating. I thought this was an elite program, he continues, surrounded by 4 other cadets. Since when does Fort Branton accept charity cases? The woman beside him, Taryn Mitchell, according to my briefing, smirks. Must be filling quotas again. How sad. I absorb their laughter without changing expression. My fingers itch to show them exactly who they're mocking. But that's not why I'm here. Logistics transfer, I say quietly, holding up my paperwork. Just point me to Captain Harrow. Another office drone playing soldier. The 3rd cadet, Derek Sullivan, practically spits the words, his thick neck reddening. His stance broadcasts insecurity masked by aggression, hands clenched too tight at his sides. Lance steps closer, examining me like I'm a curiosity. Training's going to eat you alive, sweetheart. I let my gaze drop submissively while noting every detail. Lance's overconfidence masking mediocre skills, Taryn's insecurity driving her cruelty, Derek's bluster compensating for technical incompetence. Nothing in their files suggested they deserved their top placements. First data point confirmed. Captain Harrow emerges from the building, clipboard in hand. He's shorter than his official photo suggests, with crow's feet that deepen when he frowns, which he does immediately upon seeing me. Blake? Olivia Blake? He barely glances at my transfer papers before looking past me. Logistics support, correct? Yes, sir, I confirm, standing at attention. He waves dismissively. Far corner of Barracks C. Report for morning formation at 0500. He hands my papers back without meeting my eyes, then addresses Lance with noticeably more respect. Brewer, get your team ready for the obstacle course assessment. Yes, sir. Lance responds with a grin that vanishes the moment Harrow turns away. Later, alone in the commissary bathroom, I stare at my reflection while the water runs. General Reed's warnings echo in my mind. 3 recruits dead in 6 months, Blake. Training accidents, they're calling them. His weathered face had been grim during our classified briefing. The official reports claim recruit error, but something doesn't add up. I'd spent the last 6 years with Ghost Viper, training in isolation for precisely this kind of infiltration. My marriage to Reed remained classified. No favoritism could taint this investigation. We need someone on the inside, he'd continued. Someone whose record won't raise suspicions. I splash water on my face and return to the mess hall, where the evening meal is underway. I've barely sat with my tray when Derek passes behind me, his tray accidentally tipping, sending gravy across my shoulder. Oops, he says to widespread laughter. Guess they don't teach coordination in logistics. Taryn's voice carries over the chuckles. Maybe you should crawl back to civilian life before you embarrass yourself further. I say nothing. I simply grab a napkin, clean what I can of my shirt, and continue eating, making small notes in the pocket-sized notebook I keep at hand. When I glance up, I catch the eyes of a quiet cadet across the room, Elena. Unlike the others, she doesn't laugh. Instead, she watches with something like curiosity. The next morning, I'm 2 seconds late to formation. 2 seconds by my precise count. Blake, Captain Harrow bellows. 20 extra laps for tardiness. I run them without complaint, despite the burning in my lungs and the blisters forming on my heels. I maintain a steady pace, not too slow to suggest incompetence, not too fast to reveal training beyond what my cover allows. That night, I wait until the barracks falls silent before whispering into the miniature recorder hidden in my dog tags. Day 1 assessment. Leadership actively encourages bullying as misguided team building. Instructors display clear favoritism towards certain cadets despite performance inconsistencies. Recommend expanded investigation into Captain Harrow's training methods and Colonel Ainsley's oversight failures. I tuck the recorder away and stare at the ceiling. Tomorrow, I'll dig deeper. Tomorrow, I'll start finding answers for those 3 dead recruits. This is just the beginning. Next day, I arrive at the administration building an hour before dawn, clipboard in hand. The duty officer barely glances up as I sign in for logistics filing assistance, my cover for accessing the records room. Captain Harrow's carelessness works in my favor. He forgot to lock the cabinet containing training accident reports. My fingers trace the edges of manila folders, each labeled with dates corresponding to recruit deaths. I pull the first one, scanning quickly. Recruit error appears highlighted in every conclusion, despite contradicting witness statements buried in the appendices. I freeze mid-reach when I spot Colonel Ainsley's bold signature at the bottom of each report, clearing instructors of all responsibility. This goes straight to the top. I whisper, my stomach tightening. Not just Harrow's incompetence, Colonel Ainsley himself. The commandant of Fort Branton, decorated war hero and personal friend of 3 generals on the Joint Chiefs. The realization crashes over me like ice water. These aren't isolated incidents. This is systemic. I hear footsteps approaching, and quickly return the folders to their exact positions, moving to a different cabinet just as a clerical officer enters. "You need something?" he asks, suspicious. "Supply inventory forms," I answer, holding up blank requisition papers I'd grabbed, for next week's field exercise. Later that morning, I stand at attention in the tactical briefing room. Captain Harrow paces before a topographical map, while Colonel Ainsley observes from the back, arms crossed over his immaculate uniform. My own uniform hangs slightly loose, deliberately requisitioned a size too large to maintain my cover. Standard assault formation requires 3 points of security. Harrow explains, drawing a triangle on the whiteboard. But at Fort Branton, we've developed a more efficient approach. He erases 1 point of the triangle, leaving the formation dangerously exposed on one flank. I bite my tongue. This contradicts every safety protocol in the manual. Outstanding innovation, Captain. Colonel Ainsley nods approvingly. Shows real initiative. Lance's hand shoots up. "Sir, if I may demonstrate." Harrow nods, and Lance struts to the front. He modifies the formation further, removing another security position while adding a vulnerable forward position. This gives us more offensive capability without sacrificing safety, Lance explains confidently. I notice Taryn nodding vigorously while Derek smirks. Colonel Ainsley steps forward, clapping Lance on the shoulder. "Excellent thinking, Cadet Brewer. This is exactly the kind of initiative that separates Fort Branton graduates from the rest." I struggle to keep my expression neutral. The formation Lance demonstrated was nearly identical to one that got 3 Rangers killed during an operation in Kandahar 2 years ago. I'd studied the case extensively during my Ghost Viper training. That afternoon, we assemble for a terrain run through the western ridge. The August heat shimmers above the dusty trail as Captain Harrow outlines the course. "Blake?" he barks. "Since you're so fond of being exactly where you shouldn't be, you'll run point with Mitchell." Taryn's smile doesn't reach her eyes as I fall in beside her. We're halfway through the course when she deliberately veers right, directly into my path on a narrow section bordered by jagged rocks. Her elbow connects with my ribs, sending me sprawling. My ankle twists sharply as I fall, pain shooting up my leg. "Watch your step, logistics," she sneers, continuing forward without breaking stride. Captain Harrow jogs up moments later, taking in the scene with cold eyes. "On your feet, Blake. If you can't handle a simple training run, maybe you should reconsider your placement here." "Sir, I think my ankle..." Did I ask for excuses? Complete the course. Now. Each step sends knives of pain through my ankle, but I force myself forward, gritting my teeth. I can feel Harrow's eyes boring into my back, waiting for me to fail. I won't give him the satisfaction. I limp into the barracks after sunset, my ankle throbbing. The other cadets pointedly ignore me as I make my way to my bunk, collapsing onto the thin mattress. When I return from the showers, I notice something tucked under my pillow, a roll of medical wrap with a small note. I saw what happened. Elena's handwriting. I glance across the room where she sits cleaning her boots, her eyes briefly meeting mine before looking away. As I wrapped my swollen ankle that night, I wondered if I should report my findings now or continue gathering evidence. Exposing the problems immediately might save someone from injury tomorrow, but without comprehensive proof, would anything really change? What would you do when lives are at stake but the system itself is the threat? The hidden recorder in my dog tags captures my whispered assessment. Day 2 confirmation. Training protocols deliberately violate safety standards with command approval. Colonel Ainsley isn't just allowing dangerous practices, he's actively encouraging them. I stare at the ceiling, calculating my next move while conversations fade around me. 3 dead recruits. How many more before I have enough proof? Yet I mustn't give up. I will reveal the truth. Time passes as I am trying to collect more proof. On Tuesday next week, Lance Brewer's voice carries across the training field like a bullhorn. Starting tomorrow, we're implementing an elimination competition. Lowest performer each day faces consequences in front of everyone. His grin reminds me of sharks I've encountered during maritime exercises, all teeth, no warmth. Captain Harrow stands beside him, arms crossed over his chest, nodding with approval. Colonel Ainsley has authorized this cadet-led initiative. The morning sun beats down on our gathered formation. Sweat trickles between my shoulder blades, but I maintain my deliberately average posture. The colonel has also decided. Harrow continues, his eyes lingering on me for a beat too long. That competition results will directly impact graduation recommendations. A ripple of murmurs passes through the formation. Several cadets glance my way, their expressions ranging from pity to anticipation. I've spent the past week carefully cultivating my image as the camp underdog, competent enough to avoid immediate dismissal but struggling enough to stay beneath notice. Time to separate the soldiers from the secretaries, Lance announces, his gaze fixed directly on me. That night, I discover my canteen has a pinhole leak at the bottom, almost invisible, until half my water supply soaks into my pants during the evening run. When I return to my locker, my compass needle points southeast when it should indicate north. Looking for this? Taryn asks from behind me, holding a small magnet between her manicured fingertips. Oops, must have fallen into your gear. She drops it into my palm with exaggerated concern. Might want to recalibrate before tomorrow's navigation exercise. I say nothing, just pocket the magnet and note the incident in my small leather notebook using the cipher I developed during my second year with Ghost Viper. Each entry documents times, witnesses, and patterns that reveal the corruption festering at Fort Branton. In days to come, mess hall becomes an exercise in isolation. The cadets leave a perfect circle of empty seats around me. Their conversation dips to whispers when I approach, then erupts into laughter as I pass. I collect my tray, eat methodically, and observe which instructors notice the behavior and choose to ignore it. After lights out, I update my hidden recorder. Day 13. Equipment tampering escalating. Compass sabotage suggests tomorrow's elimination will involve navigation. Support from authority figures remains non-existent. The navigation course takes us deep into the wooded hills bordering Fort Branton. We're released at 2-minute intervals with identical objectives. Locate 5 checkpoints using only compass and topographic map, then return to base before the 4-hour cutoff. I intentionally pace myself to maintain middle-of-pack timing until I spot Elena veering off course near the 3rd checkpoint. She studies her map with growing frustration, glancing at her compass repeatedly. When no one else is visible through the trees, I approach silently from her flank. Your declination adjustment is off, I whisper, reaching past her to tap a point on her map. 12 degrees east in this sector. Her eyes widen slightly, but she makes the correction without comment. Before I continue on my own route, she catches my sleeve. You're not what you seem, are you? She whispers. I don't answer, but something in my chest loosens slightly as I move away, the ghost of a smile playing at the corners of my mouth. The weapons qualification range becomes the battleground for Lance's grand performance the following afternoon. The entire camp gathers, Colonel Ainsley observing from beneath the shade of a tactical canopy. $10, says Blake couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Lance announces loudly, drawing chuckles from his circle of followers. Captain Harrow hands me the standard issue rifle. Standard qualification course, he says flatly. Try not to embarrass yourself. I take the weapon, feeling its familiar weight. For a moment, I consider maintaining my cover, performing adequately but unremarkably. But General Reed's words from our last encrypted communication echo in my mind. Trust your judgment on revealing capabilities. The mission takes priority, but so do the lives at stake. 3 recruits dead in 6 months. I field strip the rifle, my fingers moving with precise efficiency. The rhythmic click-snap of components becomes the only sound as conversations die around me. I reassemble the weapon in exactly 48 seconds, muscle memory from thousands of repetitions guiding each movement. When I step to the firing line, I breathe through my established pattern: half inhale, quarter exhale, hold. The targets downrange transform from paper silhouettes to the faces of those responsible for the deaths of 3 young recruits whose only crime was trusting their superiors. I fire 5 rounds, center mass each one. Switch to the kneeling position. 5 more rounds, perfect grouping, prone position. The final 5 rounds form a tight cluster where a human heart would be. When I stand and safe the weapon, the silence around me has a different quality. Lance's face has drained of color. Derek's mouth hangs slightly open. Captain Harrow's expression has shifted from dismissive to calculating. His eyes narrowed as he makes a notation on his clipboard. For the first time since arriving at Fort Branton, I allow myself the smallest flicker of satisfaction. Let them wonder. Let them worry. The whispers rippling through the gathered cadets tell me the balance has shifted. That evening, Elena creates a distraction in the mess hall, accidentally spilling her tray near the instructor's table. While all eyes focus on the commotion, I slip behind the duty desk and photograph the training schedules pinned to the bulletin board. These schedules, with their deliberate omissions of safety protocols, will form another piece of evidence in my growing case file. Later, Elena passes me in the corridor between barracks. "Nice shooting today," she says, voice just above a whisper. "Thanks for the assist at dinner," I respond, my voice carrying a new note of authority I've kept carefully suppressed until now. "Sometimes it takes just one person to stand up," she replies with a slight nod before continuing down the hallway. I spend that night preparing for tomorrow's final elimination challenge, reviewing all the evidence I've gathered. The course description posted on the bulletin board triggered immediate recognition. It's nearly identical to an infiltration course I mastered during my second year with Ghost Viper. Their attempt to humiliate me has inadvertently played directly into my training. The next morning during barracks inspection, Lance passes too close behind me, deliberately bumping my shoulder hard enough to send me stumbling forward. My shirt catches on his belt buckle, tearing along the seam just below my collar. "Watch where you're going, Blake," he sneers. But his smirk freezes as his eyes lock onto the exposed skin at my shoulder. Just visible beneath the torn fabric is the edge of a black tattoo, a coiled viper wrapped around a shattered skull impaled on a dagger. His eyes meet mine, recognition and sudden uncertainty flashing across his face. He's seen this symbol before in classified briefings about elite units that officially don't exist. I hold his gaze steadily, no longer bothering to look away. Game over. Now he will see what I am capable of. 2 weeks later, the elimination challenge looms over Fort Branton like a gathering storm. My boots sink slightly into the mud as I take my position at the starting line among 20 other cadets. Lance stands 3 positions to my right, his shoulders squared with unearned confidence. Taryn flexes her fingers nearby, her smirk fading when our eyes meet. "On my mark," Captain Harrow announces, clipboard pressed against his chest. His gaze lingers on me a half-second longer than the others. "This determines your standings for the remainder of training." I calculate each movement as we begin deliberately setting a pace just behind the frontrunners. The obstacle course unfolds before us. Cargo nets, mud crawls, climbing walls. My muscles remember each challenge from Ghost Viper training, but I introduce minor imperfections. A slightly slower climb, a marginally less efficient route through the tire field. A carefully measured breath when crossing the balance beam. "Blake's actually keeping up," someone mutters as I clear the barbed wire crawl with practiced efficiency. I finish second, exactly as planned, good enough to survive, not so outstanding as to draw unwanted attention. When I cross the finish line, I allow myself to breathe heavily, hands on knees in a performance of exhaustion that masks my controlled heart rate. Captain Harrow scribbles on his clipboard, eyes narrowed. His pen moves deliberately, recording more than just my time. I've seen that look before, suspicion crystallizing into certainty. "Impressive improvement, Blake," he says without looking up, almost like you've been holding back. "Just getting used to the training, sir," I respond, straightening my posture just enough to signal respect without confidence. Lance slams his water bottle down, his 5th-place finish burning in his cheeks. "Luck," he spits, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Let's see how she handles a real challenge." "What did you have in mind, Brewer?" Captain Harrow asks, interest piqued. Combat ring. Right now. Lance rolls his shoulders, already moving toward the sand pit where hand-to-hand training takes place. Unless logistics specialists don't learn basic combat. Captain Harrow hesitates, then nods. Might be educational for everyone. The cadets form a circle around the combat ring. Elena catches my eye briefly, her expression a silent warning. I step into the ring, boots sinking into sand, still bearing the imprints of previous matches. Lance circles me, muscles tensed beneath his uniform. No more hiding behind paperwork, Blake. He lunges with textbook form, telegraphing his intentions with a slight shoulder drop before his right hook launches. I shift 6 inches to the left, letting his fist pass through empty air. Stand still and fight, he growls, frustration mounting as I sidestep another attack. His third attempt comes faster, a combination aimed at my midsection. I duck the first swing, pivot away from the second, then catch his extended wrist. One fluid motion carries his momentum forward, while my leg sweeps behind his knee. Lance hits the sand face first. Before he can recover, I apply a perfect rear chokehold, pressure points aligned precisely against his carotid artery, 10 seconds of restricted blood flow, and his struggling ceases as consciousness fades. I release immediately, leaving him gasping but unharmed. The silence around the ring feels physical. I look up to find Colonel Ainsley standing at the edge of the gathered cadets, his expression frozen between shock and recognition. "Where did you learn that technique, Blake?" he asks quietly. My sleeve has ridden up, revealing the edge of my tattoo, a black viper coiled around the hilt of a dagger. His eyes fix on it, recognition dawning across his features. As Colonel Ainsley's eyes fixed on my tattoo, I faced a choice: maintain my cover to collect more evidence against the corruption, or reveal my true purpose and force immediate changes. Would protecting my mission outweigh the chance to save cadets from tomorrow's dangers? The colonel's hand rises, signaling for me to follow him away from the group. Captain Harrow moves to intercede, but Ainsley waves him off with quiet authority. Hours later, Elena creates the diversion we've arranged, knocking over an equipment rack near the mess hall that sends staff running toward the commotion. I slip into Colonel Ainsley's office, gloves on, leaving no trace of my presence. The filing cabinet yields everything we need. Falsified safety reports with inspection signatures that don't match the originals I've already photographed. Financial records showing contractor kickbacks for cutting corners on equipment maintenance. Performance evaluations altered to advance favored cadets regardless of actual ability. 5 years of documentation reveals a pattern of corruption that extends beyond Fort Branton to 3 other training facilities. The pieces lock together 3 dead recruits, dozens injured, careers advanced through compliance rather than competence. I photograph everything methodically, then return each document to its precise position. When I slip out, the office appears untouched. The following morning, the shift in dynamics is subtle but unmistakable. Captain Harrow maintains formal distance during inspections, but his tone lacks its previous dismissiveness when addressing me. Lance remains sullenly in the middle of his usual group, but their collective swagger has diminished. During afternoon drills, I notice 3 cadets mimicking my stance rather than Lance's exaggerated posture. Small rebellions against the established order. Mail call. The administration clerk announces at evening formation. Also, schedule update: General Reed will conduct base inspection tomorrow at 0800. My pulse quickens slightly. The timetable has accelerated. Captain Harrow's eyes meet mine briefly before he turns away, his shoulders tense beneath his uniform. "Never seen Harrow so jumpy," Elena murmurs as we're dismissed. "What happened in that office?" "Justice in progress," I answer quietly, watching Colonel Ainsley cross the parade ground with quick, nervous steps. Tomorrow everything changes. A month after I was appointed at this center, I enter Colonel Ainsley's office at precisely 1900 hours. His summons came through Captain Harrow, not a request but an order. The last rays of August sunlight slant through Venetian blinds, casting tiger stripes across his polished desk. "Blake," he gestures to the chair opposite him. "Take a seat." I remain standing. "Sir." Ainsley's temples glisten with perspiration despite the air conditioning. He loosens his collar before forcing a smile that resembles a grimace. "Your performance this week has been noteworthy." The hidden recorder presses against my chest beneath my dog tags. Every word captured. Every admission preserved. "I've been reviewing your file more thoroughly." He opens a folder on his desk. Your aptitude scores suggest you're overqualified for logistics. Just doing my job, sir. He leans forward. Loyalty is the backbone of this institution, Blake. We value team players who understand the chain of command. I keep my expression neutral. I believe in doing what's right, sir. What's right? He repeats my words slowly. That's precisely what I wanted to discuss. He slides a document across his desk. I'm offering you an instructor position. Starting immediately. Significant pay increase. Career advancement opportunities. I scan the document without touching it. The promotion paper is dated yesterday, prepared before my summons. Quite generous, sir. His smile widens. We reward exceptional people who understand discretion. Discretion regarding what exactly? Ainsley's jaw tightens. Military training involves calculated risks, Blake. Some individuals aren't suited for this environment. Their failures shouldn't reflect on our methods. 3 dead recruits reflect poorly on any methods, sir. The color drains from his face. Accidents happen, particularly to troublemakers who can't follow simple instructions. His eyes harden, or those who misunderstand their place. The threat hangs in the air between us. I step forward, place both palms flat on his desk, and lean in. I believe I understand my place perfectly, Colonel. My fingers find the recorder hidden beneath my tags. With deliberate slowness, I place it on his desk, revealing the blinking red light. Ghost Viper doesn't negotiate with those who endanger their own people. His eyes widen at the unit name. I produce my actual transfer papers, not the logistics cover, but my full operational orders signed by General Reed himself. This is a formal investigation into training corruption, falsified safety reports, and the deaths of Privates Martinez, Williams, and Chen. I slide a USB drive across his desk. This contains copies of every document you've hidden, every safety violation you've authorized, every kickback you've received from equipment contractors supplying substandard gear. He lunges for the recorder. I catch his wrist before he reaches it, applying just enough pressure to communicate the difference in our capabilities. That recording is already backed up, as is the one from yesterday when you authorized Captain Harrow to continue using the faulty repelling equipment despite the manufacturer's recall. You have no authority. I have every authority. I release his wrist. General Reed arrives for inspection in 20 minutes. I suggest you prepare accordingly. His lips curl into a snarl. This won't stick. I have friends at command. So do I. One in particular. The revelation dawns slowly on his face as the dots connect. My wedding ring, removed for this assignment but well known within certain circles. The sudden inspection by General Reed himself. You're Reed's wife, partner, senior tactical advisor. I straighten. And as of this moment, the acting commander of Fort Branton pending your removal. The parade grounds shimmer with heat as cadets form perfect rows for inspection. Lance and his crew stand at rigid attention in the front line, their faces set with the practiced solemnity of those expecting commendation. The black SUV rolls to a stop at precisely 1,930 hours. General Reed emerges, his silver hair catching the late afternoon Sunday. Captain Harrow steps forward to greet him. Welcome to Fort Branton, General. Colonel Ainsley sends his regrets, but... Where is Major Blake? General Reed interrupts, his voice carrying across the formation. Whispers ripple through the ranks. I step from the administrative building, now dressed in my proper uniform, the Ghost Viper insignia, visible on my shoulder, my actual rank displayed. Lance's jaw slackens. Taryn's face drains of color. Derek looks as though he might be sick. I approach General Reed and salute sharply. Sir, Major Olivia Blake reporting. At ease, Major. He returns the salute before addressing the assembled cadets. For the past month, Major Blake has conducted a comprehensive assessment of Fort Branton's training practices following 3 recruit fatalities classified as accidents. Captain Harrow's shoulders stiffen. Effective immediately. General Reed continues. Fort Branton will undergo complete restructuring. Captain Harrow is placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Military police appear at Harrow's side. Colonel Ainsley has been relieved of command and is being escorted from the premises as we speak. On cue, 2 MPs emerge from the administrative building flanking Ainsley, whose face burns with humiliation as they guide him toward a waiting vehicle. Major Blake will oversee the transition until a permanent replacement is appointed. I step forward. Dismissed to barracks. Squad leaders report to the command center at 0600 tomorrow. The formations break with mechanical precision, but uncertainty clouds every movement. As cadets disperse, Lance rushes toward the barracks, his usual swagger replaced by barely controlled panic. Later, as rumors circulate through the camp, I catch fragments of conversations. Lance reportedly faces transfer to an outpost near the Arctic Circle, his academy record flagged for conduct review. Taryn's future remains unclear, her actions documented, but her family connections potentially shielding her from consequences. I toss my duffel into the back of my Jeep, preparing to return to headquarters now that the initial phase is complete. The familiar weight of my wedding ring rests once again on my finger. Major? I turn to find Elena standing at attention. At ease, cadet. Her eyes hold 1,000 questions. Yet I feel proud as the justice is finally served. I stand in General Reed's office, shoulders squared beneath my dress uniform, the weight of my new commendation medal unfamiliar against my chest. The same staff who once barely glanced my way now snap to attention as I pass. 1 month since Fort Branton, and the world has shifted on its axis. Major Blake, your findings have initiated a complete overhaul of training protocols across 3 branches. General Reed gestures to the stack of reports before the Oversight Committee. His voice carries the formal tone we maintain in professional settings, our marriage still classified despite my mission's completion. The committee members lean forward as I present my evidence. My voice no longer requires the deliberate softness I cultivated at Fort Branton. Instead, I speak with the quiet authority that commands a room without shouting. The pattern of negligence wasn't isolated to individual instructors. I explain, advancing through my presentation. It represented a systemic failure of accountability that endangered recruits while protecting those responsible. Senator Keating, a former Marine, meets my eyes with grudging respect. Your methods were unorthodox, Major, but your results speak for themselves. When I return to Fort Branton for the graduation ceremony, the contrast nearly stops me in my tracks. Cadets who once snickered at my worn clothing now stand at rigid attention as I walk the same path where Lance Brewer first mocked me. The parade ground, once a gauntlet of humiliation, transforms into a stage for redemption as I approach the podium. The microphone amplifies my words across the perfectly maintained lawn. Leadership isn't measured by how much power you wield, but by how you use the power you're given. My gaze sweeps across the assembled cadets. Integrity isn't a medal you wear. It's the foundation that supports every decision you make when no one is watching. In the front row, Elena sits with perfect posture, her new leadership insignia catching the sunlight. Her journey from quiet observer to program leader mirrors the transformation of Fort Branton itself. Later, we gather in the officers' lounge, Elena, myself, and General Reed. The formal ceremony gives way to a moment of genuine connection as Reed pours 3 glasses of bourbon. To seeing beneath the surface, he offers, raising his glass. Elena smiles. And to those who taught us how to look. I clink my glass against theirs, feeling the burn of good whiskey and hard-won victory. Back in my office at Ghost Viper headquarters, I review applications spread across my desk. 20 candidates for 5 positions in the reconstituted training program. Through the window, I watch Colonel Ainsley being escorted to a waiting vehicle, his court-martial proceedings finally underway after weeks of investigation. The phone rings. Another training facility requesting consultation on implementing the new safety protocols. Reform ripples outward like concentric circles in still water, touching bases I've never visited. I gather my keys and jacket, heading for the parking lot where my dusty Jeep Cherokee waits. The same vehicle that brought me to Fort Branton as a dismissed nobody now carries me away as a respected architect of change. Every person I pass acknowledges me with the deference my rank commands, but it's the genuine respect in their eyes that matters. As I drive away from Fort Branton for the final time, I wonder if true respect comes from power revealed or character demonstrated through adversity. Is it better to be underestimated and prove your worth, or recognized for your value from the beginning? The question follows me down the highway, but the answer feels less important than the journey that prompted it. I turn up the radio and point my Jeep toward home, leaving Fort Branton to its new beginning.